Dodge Viper Off-Roader is a poor man's Porsche 911 Dakar. Ever wonder what a homemade off-road second-gen Viper would look like? Well, wonder no longer. A YouTuber called Superfast Matt is currently busy answering the question nobody asked. Like the 911 Dakar and that gloriously beefy V8-powered off-road Miata we saw last April, Matt's Viper has increased ground clearance, achieved via a custom-made suspension system. The rear has a solid rear axle, which the owner said he copied from a Jeep Wrangler. While the rear uses a relatively simple suspension setup, the front is more complicated. Matt designed it using 3D modeling, then welded the bits together himself. He copied the front suspension from a Ford Bronco and Toyota 4Runner, and mounting it to the sports car was as tricky as it sounds. Most of the problems stemmed from fitting the Fox front shocks and complications with fitment and parts rubbing together. These snags were solved one by one using a Dremel, a grinder, and then ultimately replacing the shocks. Even so, while the issues couldn't simply be scratched off, the rear section didn't have enough articulation, which required another interesting mechanical solution. The Viper is not running yet, and the front bumper is currently removed to keep it from being damaged. Obviously, the build isn't finished. The owner didn't discuss any engine modification on this second-generation SR2 model, which means it still has its original V10 engine that produces up to 415 horsepower. Being a 1999 model, though, this was one of the last models that didn't get anti-lock braking and traction control. So while the 911 Dakar and the Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato are the faces of modern off-road coupes, this relatively analog build is their total opposite. That said, we can only imagine how it will behave after the build gets completed.